I love that song so much that
And
Chris
who's ready for it
Cornell.
now?
Yeah, right. Chris, one dead man covering another dead man song, redoing Prince, and this one hit me real hard. It still is the Chris Cornell thing
Yeah.
because I was, I do a morning show in Detroit, and their last show ended up being last night at the Fox Theater, and so I had Kim from Soundgarden on the show last week, and I was talking to people this morning on the phones who had gone to the show, and I was, even before all that, I was in the elevator here coming to work this morning. And I'm like, why is Chris Tyler texting me at 5:30 in the morning? And it just said Chris Cornell. I'm sure you've heard. And I was like, oh. I'm like, it really knocked me on my ass. Because you know how a lot of people felt about Bowie and Prince? That's how I feel about Chris Cornell. Because, I'm way too young for all of the greatest frontmen of my generation to be dead. Which is really what's going on.
But that is pretty much what has happened.
He hanged himself. The medical examiner in Detroit confirmed that he killed himself. He was posting stuff on Facebook. His wife told TMZ or whoever called her that there was zero indication whatsoever. There was no indication that the guy was depressed or that he had fallen off the wagon because he had had his problems for a long time. But he got himself straightened up. No issues whatsoever as far as she was concerned. Obviously, you don't always see it coming. And he died in his hotel room at the MGM Grand in Detroit last night. So there's a lot of video. We've got stuff at WMMS.com, and I posted a handful of things at AlanCoxShow.com. The Beavis and Butthead retrospective. Somebody dug up some old Beavis and Butthead. But this one is real. This is one I'm having a real hard time with this one. Because Bad Motorfinger came out in 1991. That was, I think, their third album. I was a big Soundgarden fan. I was a big Alice in Chains fan. Everybody else was warming up to Nirvana and Pearl Jam. Now, Bad Motorfinger came out the same year as Nevermind and 10. So it kind of got swallowed up by those two. Certainly swallowed up by Nirvana. But they were kind of the triumvirate coming out of Seattle at that time. And Nirvana was coming more out of punk. And I was a metal kid. Alice in Chains and Soundgarden were more coming from metal. So those were the bands that I really liked. And so when Bad Motorfinger came out in 91, I listened to that thing nonstop. It got me through a lot of bad stuff in the early 90s. I saw Soundgarden in 1992 at the Aragon Ballroom, open for Skid Row.
What a show.
Skid Row was still, even though it was the early 90s and grunge hadn't quite murdered all those hair bands yet, it was knocking on the door. So at the time, the reviews were like, there's some band called Soundgarden who, for some reason, are supposed to be hipper than Skid Row, but I don't see it,
You don't see it until you actually go to the concert and then hear him sing.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, this is different. His voice was the voice of all those, grunge rock guys. He was the one that had the purest voice, I think.
So I see them at Lollapalooza in 1996. Now I still have the ticket stub somewhere, but I had to Google who else was on because I don't remember 1996 Lollapalooza. Metallica, Soundgarden, Ramones, just a couple years before Joey dies, Rancid, Screaming Cheese, and then I dragged my wife back to Chicago in 2010 to see them when they reunite. Soundgarden goes, we're reuniting because Chris Cornell had done a whole bunch of different stuff. Tried a pop album with Timbaland that nobody cared about. But he tried it, chopped all his hair off, got married again, and so we went back to Lollapalooza in 2010 to see Soundgarden, and I was in heaven seeing these guys. So it was Rage Against the Machine, Soundgarden, Cocteau Twins, who I'm a huge fan of. Cheap Trick was there. And so, So anyway, so when I get that text this morning, and then I run into the office and I'm Googling everything, and I'm like, this is insane.
I was wondering what the cause of death was going to be because when it first broke, they didn't say anything.
Well, they were worried that he fell off the wagon or something, but then little by little, they were kind of breadcrumbing the information, and they said that they had found him. His wife called after the show. Apparently, the last song they did on stage was a song about dying, and if you work backwards, everybody now thinks that there were signs.
Oh.
His wife called after the show, couldn't get him. Unreachable, calls hotel management in Detroit, asks if they can check his room. They find him unresponsive in the bathroom of his hotel room at the MGM Grand. Later on, they say cops, Detroit PD, were possibly investigating this as a suicide. There's no signs it was an overdose. They find him with a band around his neck, is what they say. And then about an hour or so ago, the medical examiner in Detroit said he died. He died by suicide.
It's crazy.
So there you go. So, again, a lot of people, Soundgarden kind of came away from it. They didn't care. But I beat the hell out of those Soundgarden records.
I wonder if he ended up leaving a note somewhere or anything.
Don't know. So, everybody thinks I'm joking, but I'm like, please, let's check Jerry Cantrell and Eddie Vedder's state of mind. Like, I'm being deadly serious with this. Let's, if anybody you thought would have ended up teats up at some point, it would have been Jerry Cantrell.
Well, and they had a lot of the tour still left, and
they were in St. Louis. They were at Rock on the Range.
Friday they're supposed to.
Tomorrow they were going to headline Rock on the Range.
They were supposed to play Rock on the Range.
Metallica, Korn, and Soundgarden were the 3-night headliners. They were supposed to headline tomorrow night at Rock on the Range.
Bill, you're back in.
Yeah. I know you guys want to see Soundgarden, but here's some jokes. No, that's going to be a real bummer.
I loved your tweet this morning, though. Roger Ailes didn't take Chris Cornell's death very well.
Yeah, Roger Ailes died too. Noted sex offender Roger Ailes also died. Mm-hmm. So anyway, it's a real bummer.
It's definitely a loss. Like, I never grew up listening to Soundgarden or Audioslave, really. Like, I mean, I know the songs if I hear them because we play them on this station. I'm familiar with them. But that voice when you hear it.
Well,
which is rare to say in the rock community.
Right. And with all due respect, Audioslave almost never registers with me. Like, I get what it was, and I remember at the time, years ago, you're like, oh my God, it's going to be Chris Cornell with Rage Against the Machine. That's awesome. And they did good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was great stuff.
It doesn't supersede Soundgarden for me. And it never, because all the bumpers today coming back for break are going to be Soundgarden. And I was thinking, oh yeah, Audioslave,
For some people, they only really followed Audioslave.
That's right.
I know a lot of people that are way into Audioslave and never really kind of jumped on the Soundgarden bandwagon.
Yeah, it's definitely a generational thing. Because
I think so.
I was in college so it was a long time ago.
But
that was one of my bands.
It's Chris Cornell because that voice. It's almost like how I think of who's the guy that died from STP? What's his name?
Scott Weiland.
Scott Weiland. It's almost like a voice like that where it's like you hear a song. I don't care if he's guesting on a song or whatever. I know that's Chris Cornell's voice.
Yeah, but between Scott Weiland and Cobain and Lane Staley, give me a break, man.
Yeah.
So, and this wasn't even an overdose.
No.
This was him going, I'm done. And I thought, well, maybe autoerotic asphyxiation or something. I mean, you're on the road, you're bored.
Yeah,
I don't think it was
a little something.
Yeah,
take a little tug.
Don't know but he had 3 girls, and God damn.
It sucks.
So anyway, we were talking. I have to break here. But we were talking yesterday on the show. You're like, you don't ever go home and have a drink. I said, not really. I'm going to go home tonight and have a drink.
I'll understand
I got to go home and have a drink tonight. Hey, guys. Thanks for watching. Plenty more where that came from. Click here to subscribe. Click here to watch another video. We'll see you next time.